The stars looked peaceful from the observation deck of the Columbus station. Captain Alex Morrison stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the darkness beyond. He had been stationed here for 3 years, watching over Earth from high orbit. Most days were quiet. Ships came and went. Satellites drifted by. Nothing exciting ever happened. Today was different. "Captain, we have multiple contacts entering the solar system," Lieutenant Kate Sullivan called from her station. Her voice carried an edge that made Morrison turn quickly. "How many?" he asked, walking toward the main display screen. 300, sir. Maybe more. They're big. Really big." Morrison felt his stomach drop. 300 ships. No human force had that many vessels. He moved to stand beside Sullivan and looked at the readings. The incoming fleet was massive. Each ship registered as larger than Earth's biggest carriers. "Get me Earth Command. Now." The communication channel opened within seconds. General Frank Hayes appeared on the screen, his face already tight with concern. Behind him, Morrison could see Admiral Lisa Chen moving between stations, coordinating something. "We see them, Morrison," Hayes said before the captain could speak. "We're mobilizing everything we have. Sir, we're outnumbered 10 to 1, maybe worse." "I know. Hold your position. We're sending reinforcements." The channel closed. Morrison looked at his crew. 23 people who signed up to monitor orbital traffic and repair satellites. None of them trained for war. But here it was, coming toward them at speeds that shouldn't be possible, far across the galaxy, in a massive ship at the center of the approaching fleet. High Commander Zalth studied the blue planet growing larger on his screens. Earth. The humans called it Earth. His intelligence reports painted them as weak, divided into hundreds of nations, constantly fighting among themselves, barely capable of reaching their own moon. "This will be simple," Zalth said to his second officer. "They have no unified defense, no real weapons. We'll have this world conquered in 3 cycles. The Vrekoth Empire had conquered 47 worlds in the last century. Earth would be number 48. The humans would surrender or die. It always happened the same way. A small fleet appeared. The natives panicked. Some fought back weakly. Then, they surrendered. Then, the Vrekoth took what they wanted. "Send the surrender message," Zalth ordered. Across the void of space, on a spinning station orbiting the neutral world of Xiron Prime, Ambassador Richard Blake received the emergency transmission from Earth. He was in a meeting with the Galactic Council when the message came through. The meeting stopped immediately. "The Vrekoth are attacking Earth?" "Council Speaker?" Theron asked. The tall alien's voice carried surprise, but not shock. This had happened before to other worlds. "Yes," Blake said quietly. He was the only human in a room full of aliens. Earth had applied to join the Galactic Council 3 months ago. The Council was still debating whether humans were ready. Now it might not matter. "We are sorry, Ambassador," Delegate Yara said. Her species, the Sistine, had lost their homeworld to the Vrekoth 30 years ago. "The Council has no military. We cannot help," Blake nodded. He expected this. The Council was a diplomatic body. They talked. They negotiated. They didn't fight. He looked around the chamber, at the representatives of 12 species. None of them met his eyes. They had all seen this before. They knew how it ended. "How long do you estimate Earth has?" Theron asked gently. "I don't know," Blake answered. "But my people will fight. They always do," another delegate said quietly. "It never matters." Back on the Columbus station, the Vrekoth message came through. Morrison listened to the translated words with growing anger. "Surrender immediately. Submit to Vrekoth authority. Resistance will result in planetary destruction." "Sir, what do we do?" Sullivan asked. Morrison didn't answer right away. He thought about his daughter on Earth, his parents, his friends. 3 billion people down there going about their lives, working, eating, sleeping, not knowing that 300 alien warships were about to demand their surrender. "We fight," he said simply. "Captain, we have 12 defense satellites and 6 armed shuttles. They have 300 warships. I know the numbers, Lieutenant." "We fight anyway." Sullivan nodded and returned to her station. Around the command deck, the crew began preparing. They armed every weapon the station had. They charged the railguns. They prepared the missile tubes. It wasn't much, but it was something. On Earth, General Hayes stood in the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens surrounded him, showing military bases across the planet activating. For the first time in human history, every nation was working together. Chinese ships launched from their moon base. Russian vessels emerged from Mars orbit. American carriers powered up their reactors. European destroyers formed battle lines. Ships from India, Brazil, Japan, Australia, and 50 other nations began moving into position. Admiral Chen coordinated the fleet movements from her station. 4 years ago, she commanded only American vessels. Now she commanded them all. The United Earth Defense Force. 212 ships. Most were small. Many were converted civilian craft with weapons bolted on. But they were all they had. "The Vrekoth fleet will reach lunar orbit in 6 hours, an officer reported. "Our fleet will be in position in 5, Chen replied. "All ships are to hold behind the moon until my signal." On Earth's surface, Commander Greg Palmer checked the ground to space missile batteries. Hundreds of sites across the planet armed their weapons. Missiles that were built to destroy other missiles, now reprogrammed to target ships in orbit. Palmer didn't know if they would work. The Vrekoth had shields. But humans had to try something. In Nevada, Dr. Helen Carter ran final checks on the directed energy platform. Her team had been building it for 5 years as an experiment. A weapon that could fire focused energy beams into space. It had never been tested at full power. Today it would be. "Are we ready?" her colleague Dr. Nathan Cross asked. "We're about to find out," Carter replied. "If this works, we might hurt them. If it doesn't, either way, we're making history." High Commander Zalth watched the countdown timer. 3 hours until they reached Earth. His fleet would enter orbit. The humans would see their ships. Then the humans would surrender. Simple. Clean. Like always. But on his sensors, something strange appeared. Ships. Human ships. Not many, but more than intelligence reported. They were gathering behind Earth's moon. Hiding. "They're going to fight," his tactical officer said. Zalth laughed. "Let them. Their weapons can't hurt us. This will be over quickly." Captain Morrison watched the Vrekoth fleet approach. 6 hours had become 3. 3 became 1. Now, the enemy ships were close enough to see on visual displays. Massive vessels, dark and angular, bristling with weapons. "All stations report ready," Sullivan said. "Then we make them remember us," Morrison replied. "Fire when in range." The Columbus station and its small fleet of defenders aimed their weapons at an empire that had never lost. On Earth below, billions of people looked up at the sky, not knowing that in moments, everything would change. The Vrekoth came expecting an easy victory. They were about to learn that humans don't surrender easily. The first shot came from the Columbus station. A railgun round, traveling at thousands of miles per second, crossed the void and struck a Vrekoth cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared bright blue, then failed. The tungsten rod punched through the hull, and the cruiser began venting atmosphere. High Commander Zalth stared at his screens in confusion. One of his ships was damaged, badly damaged, from a single, primitive kinetic weapon. "Return fire," he ordered. "Destroy that station." But before his weapons could lock on, something else happened. From behind Earth's moon came ships. Hundreds of human ships. They emerged in waves, spreading across space like an angry swarm. Captain Jake Foster commanded the destroyer Vengeance. He led the first attack wing. 50 ships followed his lead as they accelerated toward the Vrekoth fleet. Behind him came the Beijing's Hammer, commanded by Captain Liu Wei. Then the Mumbai's Pride under Captain Raj Patel. Ships from every corner of Earth, now united in one purpose. All wings, execute attack pattern Delta, Foster ordered into his communicator. The human fleet split into multiple groups. They didn't charge straight at the enemy like the Vrekoth expected. Instead, they moved in 3 dimensions, using space itself as a battlefield. Some ships went high, others went low. Some accelerated while others decelerated. It looked like chaos, but it was carefully planned chaos. Commander Peter Grant, Foster's tactical officer, watched his screens closely. The Vrekoth were powerful, but they fought in predictable formations. They put their biggest ships in front. They grouped together for protection. They did what every other species did when fighting in space. Humans did something different. Target the cruiser on the left flank, Foster ordered. All ships, concentrate fire. 20 human ships fired at once. Railguns, missiles, and experimental plasma cannons all hit the same Vrekoth cruiser within seconds. The shields couldn't handle it. The ship broke apart in a flash of light. 1 down, Grant reported. Good. Next target. The Vrekoth fleet began to react. Their ships spread out and started firing back. Energy beams lanced through space, hitting several human vessels. The destroyer Atlantic took a direct hit and exploded. The frigate Cairo lost power and began drifting. The corvette Stockholm broke in half. But for every human ship that fell, the humans destroyed 2 Vrekoth vessels. The aliens had better shields and stronger weapons. But humans had something else. They had tactics. They had adaptability. They had centuries of naval warfare experience that translated perfectly to space combat. Captain Amy Rogers commanded the carrier Defiant. Her ship was enormous, converted from an old transport vessel. It couldn't fight directly, but it carried something special. Drones. Thousands of automated fighters that flew without pilots. Rogers had spent 2 years developing the drone swarms with her engineering team. Launch all wings, she ordered. The Defiant's bays opened and drones poured out like insects. Small, fast, and numerous. Each drone was controlled by artificial intelligence that learned from every battle. They adapted in real time. The 17 real time. Our team real. The Vrekoth tried to shoot them down. But there were too many. The drones swarmed around Vrekoth ships, finding weak points in shields and armor. They attached themselves to hulls and detonated. They blocked sensor arrays. They destroyed weapon batteries. High Commander Zolth watched his fleet take losses. 30 ships gone in the first hour. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easy to conquer. All ships, advance formation, he ordered. Crush them with our numbers. But advancing meant grouping together, and when the Vrekoth grouped together, Captain Morrison saw his opportunity. Launch the mines. Morrison ordered from the Columbus station. What came next surprised everyone. Thousands of small objects appeared between the Vrekoth ships. They looked like space debris at first. The Vrekoth sensors barely noticed them. Then, they exploded. The objects weren't military mines. They were mining charges, equipment used to break apart asteroids in the belt. Commander Danny Pierce, Morrison's communications officer, had spent 3 days coordinating with mining companies across the solar system. Every automated mining station had sent their explosive charges to the battle zone. The Vrekoth fleet sailed into a minefield and paid the price. Ships took damage from multiple directions. Shields failed under the constant bombardment. 3 destroyers and a battleship were destroyed before Zalth could order a retreat. On Earth, Dr. Carter watched her screens in the Nevada facility. The orbital battle was visible on dozens of satellites. Her directed energy platform was ready. She just needed the right target. There, Dr. Cross said, pointing at a large Vrekoth battleship. That one is coordinating their formation. Take it out, and they'll lose cohesion. Carter nodded and aimed the platform. 5 years of work, billions of dollars, all for this moment. She pressed the firing button. A beam of concentrated energy, invisible to the naked eye, shot up from Earth's surface. It crossed thousands of miles in seconds and struck the Vrekoth battleship directly. The shields held for exactly 3 seconds. Then they failed. The beam burned through the hull like a cutting torch. The battleship exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from Earth's surface. It worked, Cross whispered in amazement. Fire again, Carter said calmly. Find another target. Commander Greg Palmer coordinated the ground to space missile batteries. Launch sites across Earth fired in sequence. Hundreds of missiles climbed toward orbit, their trails visible in the night sky. The missiles weren't as advanced as the Vrekoth weapons, but there were many of them, and they were fast. The Vrekoth tried to shoot them down, but the human missiles were designed to avoid interception. They jinked and weaved. They released decoys. They split into multiple warheads. Some failed. Many were destroyed. But enough got through. Captain Jake Foster saw the Vrekoth fleet beginning to falter. They were confused, disorganized. Their formations were breaking apart. All ships, full assault. Drive them back. The human fleet accelerated. Every ship pushed its engines to maximum. They closed the distance with the Vrekoth vessels and engaged at point-blank range. It was dangerous. Humans died. Ships exploded on both sides. But humans kept pressing forward with a fury that shocked the aliens. Commander Julie Price commanded the Nautilus, a strange ship designed like Earth's old submarines. It was built to hide, to move quietly through space, to strike from unexpected angles. Price had learned warfare from her grandfather, who served in the Navy decades ago. He taught her about patience, about waiting for the right moment. She waited until the Vrekoth fleet was focused on Foster's attack. Then she brought her ship around the far side of the moon and attacked from behind. The Vrekoth never saw her coming. Price's crew destroyed 4 ships before the enemy even knew they were there. Dive, 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 Price ordered, using submarine terminology that made her crew smile. The Nautilus disappeared behind an asteroid and vanished from Vrekoth sensors. High Commander Zalth couldn't believe what was happening. His fleet was losing. Actually losing to humans. Species that barely left their own planet. He had lost over 100 ships. The humans were fighting like nothing he had ever seen. They used terrain. They used deception. They attacked from multiple angles. Sir, we need to retreat, his second officer said. Zalth wanted to refuse. The Vrekoth Empire didn't retreat. They conquered. But looking at his screens, seeing the burning wrecks of his ships, he knew the truth. If he stayed, his entire fleet would be destroyed. All ships, withdraw. Fall back to the rally point. The Vrekoth fleet began to retreat. But the humans didn't let them go easily. Captain Foster's destroyers chased them. Captain Rogers' drones harassed them. Captain Price's Nautilus picked off stragglers. By the time the Vrekoth fleet reached the edge of the solar system, they had lost 112 ships. On the Columbus station, Captain Morrison watched the enemy flee. His crew was exhausted. Several stations were damaged. They had lost good people. But Earth still stood. The Vrekoth came to conquer Earth and failed. Lieutenant Sullivan, send a message to Earth Command, Morrison said. The enemy is retreating. Victory is ours. Sullivan smiled and sent the message. Across Earth, billions of people watched the news in amazement. The aliens came to invade Earth, and Earth sent them running. Celebrations erupted in cities around the world. But in the command center, General Hayes and Admiral Chen didn't celebrate. They looked at each other with the same thought. The Vrekoth would return, and next time, they would bring more ships. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Richard Blake stood before the emergency session. The chamber was full. Every delegate had arrived to watch what they assumed would be Earth's final hours. Giant holographic displays filled the center of the room, showing the battle happening light years away in Earth's solar system. Council Speaker Theron activated the recording systems. His species always documented important events. The fall of worlds qualified as important. He had recorded 47 such defeats over the last century. Earth would be the 48th entry in the archives. The Vrekoth fleet has entered combat range, an observer announced. The delegates watched in silence. They had all seen this before. The Vrekoth arrived. The natives fought briefly. The natives lost. Then came the occupation and the suffering. It never changed. Delegate Yara of the Sistine Collective sat in her chair, her multiple eyes fixed on the displays. Her homeworld had fallen 30 years ago. She watched her people fight. She watched them lose. She escaped on the last transport. Since then, she had watched other worlds fall. It never got easier. Ambassador Blake, she said quietly, you should prepare for evacuation. The Council can offer your people sanctuary. Blake didn't answer immediately. He watched the displays as the first shots were fired. He saw the Columbus station hit a Vrekoth ship. He saw the human fleet emerge from behind the moon. He saw the chaos of battle beginning. My people will fight, he said simply. They always do. Another delegate murmured. It changes. Nothing. But something was different this time. The usual pattern wasn't emerging. The Vrekoth fleet should have advanced and overwhelmed the defenders within minutes. Instead, they were taking damage. Real damage. Military observer Korthus leaned forward in his seat. He was a Dravik, a species known for military analysis. He had studied hundreds of space battles. He knew what worked and what didn't. What he was seeing now confused him. The humans are using kinetic weapons, he said aloud. Primitive railguns. They shouldn't penetrate Vrekoth shields. Vrekoth. Primitive. Pronsa. Yet they are, Theron observed. The shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Lasers. Plasma. Not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. It's like using ancient catapults against modern armor, so primitive that the defenses aren't optimized against them. On the displays, the battle intensified. Human ships moved in patterns that made no sense to the watching aliens. They didn't maintain formation. They didn't advance in straight lines. They scattered and regrouped constantly. What are they doing? A delegate asked. Their tactics are chaos. No, Korthus said slowly. It's not chaos. It's adaptation. They're using three-dimensional space as terrain. They're treating this like atmospheric combat, like naval warfare. But there is no terrain in space. Another delegate protested. They're creating it, using their moon as cover, using asteroids as obstacles. They're making the Vrekoth fight in an environment humans understand. Ambassador Blake allowed himself a small smile. The Council was beginning to understand. Humans didn't fight like other species, because humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Every tactic, every strategy, every lesson learned from centuries of warfare was being applied to space combat. The battle continued for hours. The Council members watched as the Vrekoth lost ships. 1, then 5, then 10, then 30. The numbers kept climbing. The usual script wasn't playing out. The defenders weren't collapsing. They were winning. This isn't possible, Delegate Yara whispered. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. She had never seen anyone hurt the Vrekoth this badly. Her own people, with their advanced technology and powerful fleet, had been crushed. Yet these humans, barely spacefaring, were destroying Vrekoth ships left and right. On the displays, the drone swarms appeared. Thousands of tiny fighters pouring from the human carrier. The Council members watched in fascination as the drones attacked with coordinated precision. Are those piloted? Someone asked. No life signs, an observer reported. They're automated. Artificial intelligence. AI fighters? Korthus said. We banned those after the machine wars 3,000 years ago. Too dangerous. Too. Humans didn't fight in your machine wars, Blake pointed out. We have different rules. The battle reached its peak when the ground-based energy weapon fired. The beam struck a Vrekoth battleship and destroyed it instantly. The council chamber fell completely silent. Every delegate stared at the displays in shock. That came from the planet's surface, Korthus said in amazement. They can hit targets in orbit from their homeworld. How much power does that require? Theron asked. More than most species can generate, Korthus replied. Either humans have massive energy production capabilities, or they just used everything they had for one shot. Does it matter? Blake asked. It worked. A. The council members began whispering among themselves. This wasn't just surprising. This was unprecedented. Species didn't defeat Vrekoth invasions. They didn't destroy 100 ships. They didn't fight this effectively. Ambassador Blake, Theron said formally. We may need to reconsider Earth's membership application. After this battle ends, Blake replied. One way or another, but everyone in the chamber could see which way it was going. The Vrekoth fleet was faltering. Their formations were breaking. Ships were burning. The mighty empire that had conquered 47 worlds was being beaten by a species they considered primitive. When High Commander Zalth finally ordered the retreat, the council chamber erupted in conversation. Delegates stood from their seats. Some shouted questions. Others argued with each other. The usual calm and order of the council dissolved into chaos. Order, Theron called out, his voice amplified. We will have order. The chamber slowly quieted. Everyone returned to their seats. But the energy in the room had changed completely. They had all witnessed something that shouldn't be possible. Delegate Yara spoke first. They won. The humans actually won. They didn't just win. Korthus corrected. They dominated. The Vrekoth lost over 100 ships, against a force that should have been easy to defeat. This changes everything. Question. Our process. Does it? Another delegate asked. The Vrekoth will return. They always return with a larger fleet. Earth may have won this battle, but the war isn't over. Ambassador Blake listened to the debate. He knew the delegate was right. The Vrekoth would come back. They would bring more ships. Earth won today, but tomorrow was uncertain. What will your people do now? Theron asked Blake. Directly. What we always do, Blake answered. We'll prepare for the next fight. And if the Vrekoth bring 5,000 ships next time, then we'll figure out how to destroy 5,000 ships. The simple confidence in Blake's voice made several delegates uncomfortable. This was not how species spoke about warfare. Most species fought defensively. They protected their worlds and hoped for peace. Humans spoke about fighting as if it was simply another problem to solve. Korthus studied the battle data on his personal display. He ran calculations. He analyzed the combat patterns. The more he studied, the more concerned he became. He raised his hand for permission to speak. Council Speaker, I request permission to submit an immediate report. Granted, Theron replied. Korthus stood and faced the chamber. I have analyzed the human combat data. I have several observations that the Council needs to hear. First, humans used weapons and tactics that we consider outdated or barbaric. Kinetic weapons, explosive mines, ambush tactics. But these methods were highly effective against an opponent optimized to fight conventional modern warfare. He paused and looked around the chamber. Second, humans showed remarkable coordination despite coming from a divided world. Every nation contributed forces. Every ship followed orders. They unified completely in the face of a common threat. This level of cooperation is rare, even among species that have been unified for centuries. Another pause. Third, and most concerning, humans didn't fight to survive. They fought to win. There is a difference. Species fight to survive until they can negotiate peace. Humans fought to destroy the enemy. They showed no interest in negotiation or surrender. They wanted victory and were willing to pay any price for it. The chamber was silent. Every delegate understood the implication. Humans were dangerous, not because they had superior technology, but because they approached warfare with a mindset that most species had abandoned long ago. "What are you suggesting?" Theron asked. "I'm suggesting that we approve Earth's membership immediately," Korthus said. "Not because we fear them, but because we need them. The Vrekoth have been a threat to this galaxy for a century. We have no military. We have no way to stop them. But humans just proved they can fight back. If we make Earth an ally now, perhaps they will protect other worlds in the future." Delegate Yara stood up. "I agree. My people were conquered because no one helped us. If humans had been there, maybe we would still have our homeworld. Maybe the Vrekoth would have learned to leave peaceful species alone." Other delegates began nodding. The conversation shifted from whether humans were ready for membership to whether the Council was ready for humans. Ambassador Blake watched it all with careful eyes. Earth had defended itself successfully. Now the galaxy was seeing humans as something other than primitives. They were seeing Earth as a potential protector, a guardian, a force that could stand against empires. But Blake knew the truth. Earth didn't fight the Vrekoth to protect the galaxy. Earth fought because someone attacked their home, and humans never forgave that. General Frank Hayes stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing damage reports from the battle. Earth had won, but the cost was clear. 43 ships destroyed, hundreds of crew members dead. The Columbus station needed major repairs. 3 orbital platforms were offline. Admiral Lisa Chen walked up beside him. She carried a data tablet filled with intelligence reports about the Vrekoth Empire. Reports gathered from intercepted communications during the battle. Reports that painted a concerning picture. "They'll come back," Chen said quietly. "The Vrekoth don't accept defeat. They'll bring a larger fleet and try again." "How long do we have?" Hayes asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Time to regroup and call for reinforcements from their other territories. Hayes nodded slowly. He looked at the screens showing Earth from orbit. 3 billion people down there celebrating victory. They thought the threat was over. They thought they were safe now. But military commanders knew better. The war had just started. "We need to talk to the president," Hayes said. 2 hours later, they sat in a secure conference room with President Linda Martinez. She listened to their assessment in silence. When they finished, she leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes briefly. "So we wait for them to come back stronger?" she asked. "That's one option," Chen replied. "We can fortify our defenses, build more ships, prepare better weapons. When they return, we'll be ready." "What's the other option?" General Hayes leaned forward. "We take the fight to them. We don't wait for the Vrekoth to attack Earth again. We go to their territory and make sure they never have the chance." The room fell silent. President Martinez looked at both military leaders carefully. "You're talking about an invasion, an attack on their space. We would be the aggressors." "No, Madam President," Hayes said firmly. "They attacked us first. They came to our home to conquer us. We're simply ensuring they can't do it again. This isn't aggression. This is self-defense. The rest of the galaxy might not see it that way." "The rest of the galaxy doesn't matter," Chen said bluntly. They sat and watched while the Vrekoth conquered 47 worlds. They have no military, no way to stop threats. They talk about peace while letting empires destroy innocent species. Earth can't rely on them for protection. We have to protect ourselves. Martinez considered this. She thought about the battle reports, the destroyed ships, the dead crew members. She thought about what would happen if the Vrekoth came back with 5,000 ships instead of 300. "If we do this, we're committing to a different kind of warfare," she said. "We're saying that Earth will strike first against threats. We're changing the rules. The Vrakoth changed the rules when they attacked Earth, Hayes replied. We're just responding appropriately. Martinez made her decision. Do it. But I want minimal civilian casualties. We're not conquerors. We're defenders. Make sure the Vrakoth understand the difference. 1. Pa. Within 24 hours, the Earth fleet began preparing for departure. Ships that survived the battle were repaired quickly. New vessels launched from shipyards on the Moon and Mars. Crews were assembled. Weapons were loaded. Intelligence teams analyzed every piece of data about Vrakoth territory. Captain Jake Foster stood on the bridge of his destroyer, Vengeance, now designated as the flagship for the attack force. He had been promoted to Commodore and given command of a task force of 80 ships. More would follow once they secured a forward base. His tactical officer, Commander Peter Grant, coordinated with other ship commanders. The plan was complex but achievable. They would pursue the fleeing Vrakoth fleet, track them to their staging ground, and attack before reinforcements could arrive. All ships report ready, Grant announced. Then let's go hunting, Foster said. The human fleet left Earth's solar system and entered the darkness between stars. They followed the trail left by the Vrakoth faster than light drives. Lieutenant Barry Holmes, Foster's science officer, had found a way to track the energy signatures. It was like following footprints in snow. They traveled for 3 days before reaching the first Vrakoth territory, a star system called Krenth by the natives. The Vrakoth had conquered it 12 years ago and turned it into a military staging ground. The system had 6 planets. 2 were inhabited by the native Krenth species. The Vrakoth occupied both worlds and used them as supply depots. Foster studied the system carefully. 40 Vrakoth ships in orbit. Military bases on both planets. Slave labor camps, where Krenth civilians worked to build weapons and supplies. This was what the Vrakoth did to conquered worlds. This was what they wanted to do to Earth. We can't just bombard the planets, Foster said to his command staff. There are civilians down there. Then we do this the hard way, Commander Grant replied. We take out the fleet first. Then we send teams to the surface to evacuate civilians before hitting military targets. It was risky. It would take time. But it was the right thing to do. Foster gave the orders. The human fleet attacked at dawn, local time. The Vrakoth ships in orbit never had a chance to form up properly. Human vessels emerged from behind the system's asteroid belt and struck with overwhelming force. Railguns fired. Missiles launched. Drone swarms deployed. The battle lasted 6 hours. All 40 Vrakoth ships were destroyed with minimal human losses. The Vrakoth ground forces watched in horror as their fleet burned above them. Then, the real work began. Captain Claire Hughes commanded the special operations ship Phantom. Her vessel was designed for quick insertions and covert operations. She led a team of 300 soldiers and support personnel. Their mission was simple but dangerous. Enter the occupied zones. Locate civilians. Get them to safety. Major Paul Stevens led one team. He had 15 years of Special Forces experience. His team landed near the largest labor camp on Krenth 2. They moved quickly, using stealth technology to avoid detection. When they reached the camp, they found 5,000 Krenth civilians working under guard. Non-lethal weapons only, Stevens ordered. Take out the guards quietly. His team moved like ghosts. Stun weapons dropped guards without killing them. Within 30 minutes, they controlled the entire camp. The Krenth civilians stared at the humans in confusion and fear. They had never seen humans before. Stevens removed his helmet and spoke through a translator. We're from Earth. We're here to help. We're getting you out before this place gets destroyed. The Krenth didn't understand at first. But when human ships landed to evacuate them, they realized these strange aliens were actually rescuing them. Within hours, all 5,000 civilians were safely aboard transport ships. Major Karen White led another team targeting a smaller camp on Krenth 1. Her operation went equally smooth. More civilians rescued. More guards captured. More guards. More guards. The Vrekoth military bases were isolated with no civilian presence nearby. All civilians evacuated, Hughes reported to Foster. Military targets are clear. Proceed with orbital strikes, Foster ordered. What followed was precise and devastating. Human ships targeted Vrekoth military installations with pinpoint accuracy. Bases were destroyed. Supply depots were obliterated. Communication centers were taken offline. The Vrekoth occupation force on Krenth was eliminated in less than a day. The Krenth civilians watched from the human ships as their world was liberated. They saw the Vrekoth bases burning. They saw the occupation end after 12 years of slavery. Many of them cried. Some of them cheered. All of them were grateful. Foster contacted the surviving Krenth leaders. Your world is free. The Vrekoth are gone. We'll stay in orbit for 3 days to make sure they don't come back. After that, you're on your own. Why did you help us? A Krenth elder asked through the translator. Why risk your lives for strangers? Because someone tried to do to us what the Vrekoth did to you, Foster replied. We won't let that happen to Earth, and we won't let it keep happening to others. News of the Krenth liberation spread quickly through the Vrekoth Empire. High Commander Zalth was dead, executed by his superiors for losing the Earth battle. War Master Krethok took command. He was older, more experienced, and far more ruthless than Zalth. Krethok read the reports about Krenth with cold anger. Humans had invaded Vrekoth territory. Humans had destroyed military assets. Humans had freed slaves. This was unacceptable. The Vrekoth Empire was built on conquest and fear. If humans were allowed to challenge that, the entire empire might collapse. Mobilize the full armada, Krethok ordered. Every ship, every weapon. We will crush Earth and make an example of them. The galaxy will learn that no one challenges the Vrekoth Empire. His subordinates hesitated. War Master, the full armada is 6,000 ships. That's our entire military force. If we commit everything and fail, the Empire will be defenseless. We will not fail, Krethok said coldly. 6,000 ships against a few hundred human vessels. The outcome is certain. But back on Earth, Admiral Chen was already planning for this possibility. She knew the Vrekoth would respond with overwhelming force. She knew Earth couldn't match them in numbers, but Earth didn't need to match them. Earth just needed to outsmart them. We're not fighting this battle in our solar system, Chen said to her staff. We're taking it to them. We choose the battlefield. We choose the conditions. And we make them fight on our terms. General Hayes agreed. The Vrekoth think in terms of massive fleet actions. Big ships. Direct confrontations. We need to force them into a battle where size doesn't matter, where tactics and innovation defeat raw power. The stage was being set for the largest space battle in galactic history, and humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson about warfare that would never be forgotten. War Master Krethok stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Emperor's Wrath. Around him floated 6,000 warships. The entire military might of the Vrekoth Empire assembled in one location. Never before had such a fleet been gathered. Never before had it been necessary. The humans destroyed our bases on Krenth, his second officer reported. They freed the slaves. They humiliated us. They will pay for that humiliation with their world, Krethok replied. Set course for Earth. We will burn their planet to ash. The massive fleet began moving toward human space. Their faster-than-light drives activated in sequence, creating ripples in space that could be detected across dozens of light years. It was impossible to hide a force this large. The Vrekoth didn't try. They wanted everyone to see. They wanted the galaxy to witness what happened to species that defied the Empire. On Earth, the detection systems picked up the incoming fleet immediately. The readings seemed impossible at first. Scientists checked the sensors 3 times to make sure. 6,000 ships. maybe more. The largest invasion force ever assembled. Admiral Lisa Chen looked at the display and felt her stomach tighten. Earth's entire fleet numbered 400 ships now, with reinforcements still under construction. They were outnumbered 15 to 1. Even with superior tactics, those odds were crushing. "They're coming in fast," an officer reported. "They'll reach our outer systems in 4 days." "Good," Chen said quietly. The officer looked confused. "Ma'am? They're doing exactly what we expected. They're coming straight at us with everything they have. They're angry, and they want revenge. That makes them predictable." Chen activated the communications network that linked her to every human ship in space. Captain Jake Foster's task force was still in Vrekoth territory. Captain Alex Morrison's fleet guarded Earth. Captain Amy Rogers was preparing her drone carriers near Mars. Captain Claire Hughes had special operations teams ready for deployment. "All units, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Operation Anvil." The plan was ambitious. Instead of waiting at Earth for the Vrekoth to arrive, humanity would intercept them in deep space. The location was carefully chosen. A binary star system called Target Zone Victor, 2 stars orbiting each other, surrounded by a massive asteroid belt and intense radiation fields. "Why there?" President Linda Martinez had asked when Chen first proposed the plan. "Because the radiation will interfere with their sensors," Chen explained. "The asteroids will provide cover and opportunities for ambush, and the gravitational fields from 2 stars will make their larger ships harder to maneuver. We'll be fighting in an environment where their advantages become disadvantages." Now the trap was being set. Human ships converged on Target Zone Victor from multiple directions. They didn't mass together like a traditional fleet. Instead, they scattered throughout the system, hiding behind asteroids, using radiation shadows to mask their presence. Captain Chris Bennett commanded the newly commissioned Dreadnought Resolution. The ship was massive by human standards, built from materials mined on the moon and assembled in orbit. It carried the most advanced weapons Earth could build, including experimental quantum displacement torpedoes that Dr. Helen Carter's team had developed. Bennett positioned his ship near one of the binary stars, using its corona as cover. Around him, 50 other vessels waited in silence. Radio silence. Minimal power. Just waiting. "How long until they arrive?" Bennett's executive officer asked. 3 hours, Bennett replied. "Then we see if this works." The Vrekoth Armada entered Target Zone Victor exactly on schedule. War Master Krethok saw the asteroid belt and radiation fields, but dismissed them as minor obstacles. His fleet was too powerful to be stopped by terrain. "Spread out and advance," he ordered. "Find the human homeworld and destroy it." But as his fleet spread through the system, something became clear. They couldn't find Earth. Their long-range sensors were being disrupted by radiation. Their navigation systems struggled with the dual gravitational fields. The massive fleet that looked so impressive in open space suddenly seemed clumsy and vulnerable. "Where are the humans?" Krethok demanded. He got his answer when the first wave of attacks hit. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids and fired. Railguns launched tungsten rounds at incredible speeds. Missiles streaked across the void. Captain Rogers unleashed her drone swarms by the tens of thousands. The Vrekoth tried to return fire, but the humans were already gone. They fired and retreated. Used the asteroids like a maze, appearing and disappearing before the Vrekoth could target them effectively. "This is guerrilla warfare," Krethok's tactical officer said. "They're not fighting like a traditional fleet." "Then we adapt," Krethok snapped. "Send squadrons into the asteroid field. Hunt them down." But splitting up was exactly what the humans wanted. When Vrekoth squadrons entered the asteroid belt alone, they were ambushed by overwhelming local forces. Captain Foster's destroyers hit them from one side. Captain Morrison's frigates struck from another. The Vrekoth squadrons were destroyed before they could call for help. Dr. Carter's directed energy platform had been transported to a captured asteroid near the battle zone. From there, her team fired on Vrekoth capital ships. The massive battleships and carriers made easy targets. Their shields failed under the concentrated beams. One by one, the largest Vrekoth ships began to burn. War Master Krethok watched his fleet take casualties and realized the truth. The humans had chosen this battlefield carefully. Everything here favored smaller, more agile vessels. His massive armada was being picked apart by an enemy that refused to fight directly. All ships, tight formation, he ordered. We push through together, but grouping together made them vulnerable to another human weapon. Captain Bennett's dreadnought Resolution revealed itself and fired the quantum displacement torpedoes. These weapons existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously until the moment they hit their target. Shields couldn't stop them because they weren't fully real until impact. 3 torpedoes struck Vrekoth battleships. The ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. Completely erased at the quantum level. The Vrekoth fleet panicked. Soldiers who had conquered 47 worlds suddenly faced an enemy they couldn't understand. An enemy that used terrain, that struck from nowhere, that employed weapons beyond their comprehension. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human casualties were significant. The destroyer, Atlantic, rebuilt after the first battle, was destroyed again. The frigate Oslo took a direct hit and lost all hands. The corvette Bangkok broke apart under sustained fire. Earth lost 30 ships and over 2,000 crew members, but the Vrekoth lost far worse. When War Master Krethok finally ordered a retreat, his fleet had been reduced to less than 3,000 ships. Half his armada destroyed, half the military might of the Vrekoth Empire gone in one battle. Pursue them, Admiral Chen ordered. Don't let them regroup. Human ships chased the fleeing Vrekoth across 3 star systems. They hit supply lines. They destroyed reinforcement stations. They attacked the Vrekoth homeworld's outer defenses. Captain Hughes and her special operations teams infiltrated occupied worlds and freed more slaves. In his command center on Vreka Prime, the Vrekoth homeworld, War Master Krethok faced the impossible truth. His empire was losing. Badly. The humans were going to reach his homeworld. They were going to finish this war. He did something no Vrekoth commander had done in 3 centuries. He contacted the humans and offered surrender. Admiral Chen received the communication with Captain Foster, Captain Morrison, and General Hayes present. They listened to Krethok's terms. Ceasefire. Peace negotiations. Mutual withdrawal. No, Chen said simply. Ma'am? Foster asked. They attacked Earth. They tried to conquer us. They enslaved dozens of species. Now they want peace because they're losing? Chen shook her head. Our terms are simple. Complete withdrawal from every occupied world. Reparations to every species they've harmed. Submission to Galactic Council oversight to ensure they never invade anyone again. And they accept these terms now, or we continue to their homeworld and enforce them ourselves. The message was sent. Krethok read it and understood. Humanity wasn't interested in negotiation. They were interested in total victory. He accepted the terms. On the Galactic Council station, the emergency session that started weeks ago had never really ended. The delegates had watched the entire war unfold. They saw humanity defend Earth. They saw humans invade Vrekoth space. They saw the massive battle at Target Zone Victor. They saw the impossible happen. The Vrekoth Empire, which had conquered 47 worlds, which had threatened the galaxy for a century, which had never lost a war, had been defeated. Completely and utterly defeated. By a species that most delegates had never heard of 3 months ago. Council Speaker Theron stood before the chamber. The war is over. Humanity has won. The Vrekoth have agreed to all terms. The chamber was silent. Every delegate processed what this meant. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. Earth wasn't just another member species. Earth was a military power, perhaps the strongest military power. Military observer Korthus submitted his final report. He had spent weeks analyzing every aspect of human warfare. His conclusions were detailed and concerning. Humanity does not fight the way other species fight, his report stated. They do not accept limits. They do not fight defensively. When attacked, they respond with overwhelming force. They pursue enemies across star systems. They employ tactics that other species consider barbaric or outdated. They adapt constantly. They innovate in real time. They are willing to take casualties that would cause other species to surrender. The report continued with a warning that would be taught in military academies across the galaxy for generations. Any species considering military action against Earth should understand several things. First, humans will not stop at their borders. They will bring the war to you. Second, they do not accept surrender easily. They will demand terms that ensure you can never threaten them again. Third, they fight with a coordination and dedication that suggests they value their home more than their individual lives. Fourth, they possess weapons and tactics that current military doctrine is not prepared to counter. The report concluded simply, recommendation: never attack Earth. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to grant Earth full membership. Ambassador Richard Blake accepted on behalf of humanity. He gave a brief speech that was recorded and distributed throughout the galaxy. Earth did not seek this war. We did not want to prove ourselves through violence. But when forced to fight, we fought to protect our home and to ensure no one else would suffer as others have under the Vrekoth. Earth joins this council not as a species seeking protection, but as one committed to protecting others. But if peace fails, we will ensure that innocent species do not stand alone. 6 months later, Captain Alex Morrison, promoted to Admiral, stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Endurance. The ship orbited Earth, its mission to lead the deep space fleet that would protect not just humanity, but any world that requested Earth's help. Beside him, Commander Kate Sullivan monitored the quantum communication network that now linked Earth with dozens of liberated worlds. Former Vrekoth slaves were rebuilding their civilizations. The Krenth species had already established diplomatic relations with Earth. Other worlds followed. Morrison looked at the stars and thought about how much had changed. 3 months ago, humanity didn't know aliens existed. Now Earth was a major power in galactic politics. Now human ships patrolled multiple star systems. Now the galaxy knew that humanity existed. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call," Sullivan reported. "A species called the Xiphon. They're being raided by pirates. They're asking for our help." Morrison smiled slightly. "Set course. Time to show the galaxy what humanity does when someone asks for help." The Endurance and its escort fleet activated their drives and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, Earth continued to build. More ships, better weapons, stronger defenses, not because humanity wanted war, but because humanity had learned a simple lesson. The galaxy was not always peaceful. Threats existed. Empires rose and fell. And when someone needed protection, Earth would be there, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Not to dominate, but to defend. The age of humanity in the stars had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.